We've got a great show lined up for you this week in Evansville. I'm Johnny Kincaid, along with today Ken Colbert, who, we're going to get into the details of what these two have been up to here in a minute, and Cheryl Baddiger-Smith. I think the best way that I can open this up is by talking about the fact that there have been a lot of people who have seen the Republican Party as being a real mess. Pretty much a dumpster fire. Let's be honest about it. But that's rang true at the local, at the state, and at the national level. And what's happening all over the country is that people are finally saying, okay, enough of this. We're gonna grab the reins. We're gonna take control back, and we're gonna get this party moving in the direction that it should be moving in. And as a guy who cast his first vote in a presidential election for Ronald Reagan, wow. I'm going to say I am all for getting the House cleaned out and getting back to those conservative values. So that's where we're going to focus things on today. And one of the projects that has gone on, you probably saw some news coverage about county chairmen deciding to challenge some candidates for precinct committeemen and for delegates to the convention. Here's the reason that came about. It's because they're grabbing the reins and they're taking control back again. And they don't want, the party bosses don't want to let go of the reins. And with taking the control, what's been done has been an incredible recruiting effort that I keep talking to people about this, and nobody has really seen anything like it happen before, that we actually have filled PC slots all throughout Vanderburgh. Ward County has been the same story. And for convention delegates, which we get 46 seats from Vanderburgh County, normally the committee chair for the county is filling about half of those. Right. And this year we've got such an abundance that only about half of the people who are going to run as candidates for those delegate seats are actually going to get the seats. So how did this come about? I mean, how do we wind up now in this predicament that we're in now, which is a good place to be, honestly, because it shows that the democracy is strong, right? Right. So how did we get here? Ken?
Well, we got involved in this group known as the Precinct Strategy. It's a national movement, and all the way to the state of Indiana, all the way down to Vanderburgh County. And so we were inspired to get local involvement, which meant we were out there soliciting people to participate in this precinct committeeman project. And tremendous success, because we talked to people throughout the state of Indiana, and I think we are leading the pack here, because we were able, in the solicitation with our group, the people that were involved in this, we solicited 99 people to come forward in these different wards and precincts to sign up. And so fast forward, we're up to the point now where we're going to get the rest of these people over the finish line.
And the piece of education that we want people to understand is the importance of these positions, because it kind of sounds like, oh, the precinct committeeman, that's not a nothing role. But this is where the power base is. Yes. In the party, or where it's supposed to be. That power base has been stripped away by party bosses over the course of years. And so now the people at the grassroots level are banding together to pull that back. The precinct committeemen are the people who steer what the local party does. Yes. Our local county party then, in conjunction with other counties, steers what the 8th congressional district does. And then the 8th congressional district steers what the state does as a party. And then from there it moves to the national level. But the real power in that whole structure, it is what goes on at that base level at the precinct committee.
Right. Unfortunately, what we discovered through this entire process is that Vanderburgh County had only approximately 50 PCs, approximately. Mm-hmm. And the law says we should have 134. And so we were able to recruit 99 of those individuals. But I think the current administration, the current leadership likes having only 50 because they were able to get an end result based upon how they were voting on vacancies that take place or even who the chairman will be.
Right.
So we had a lot of success with that.
And actually, we now are faced with one of those situations where that power of the precinct committeeman is going to come into play with Carla Hayden saying that her plan is to step down in August.
I heard that.
Yes, from county clerk, which means that and Dottie Thomas, who is running for that seat,
right,
but is currently treasurer, she says she's not going to abandon her job as treasurer in order to jump over to county clerk before the election takes place. So those precinct committee people are going to be determining who this interim person is going to be as our county clerk during what's going to be one of the biggest elections of our lifetime. This is going to be so weird.
So apparently Mrs. Hayden does not want to be responsible for the fall election then.
From what I understand, she has been receiving threats, and that out of concern for over that, and it's the threats aren't necessarily new, but what happens in August is that she becomes eligible for her pension at that point. So it's the perfect time for her to retire. There's going to be a lot of pressure on her to stay in that seat, obviously, because nobody wants to go in knowing that they're going to put somebody in that seat for 5 months. Person's going to have no training, no understanding of how the job works. And just as they discover how to count votes, they're out. So it's a bad situation for everybody all the way around.
See, I look at it as an ethical situation too, because if you are hired to do a job, and in this case elected, you should sit there until your term is finished. Mm-hmm. And this is a very unethical thing to do. But we did tell a lot of the people that we recruited that being a precinct committeeman seems like it is a small job. It's a grassroots job, but it's a very important and it holds a lot of power. And so they didn't even know in most cases what a precinct committeeman was. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, because these are the forgotten men and women in our county that didn't know they could actually be a part of what's taking place. And so they're very excited now. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that we told them, that they could choose, once they're elected, they could choose their own vice. They didn't realize that even people that had been precinct committeemen for years didn't know they could choose their own vice. They thought it had to be appointed, mm-hmm. and that's not the case. And they also know that they have a lot of power in being a precinct committeeman because, like you said, with Carla retiring, they could step up and put the person in place.
Right.
There's a lot of other things they could do too, but that's a big one.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to discount how important. I forget what the percentages was, but I was just shocked to see the percentage of people who their first step into their public office was by being caucused in.
Yes.
That it's a remarkably high number, which means that there's a huge impact for those precinct committee people.
See, I really thought maybe the chairman would appoint somebody to take her place. They give the county chairman mm-hmm. a lot of leverage.
Right. The way the county chairmen have done that in the past has been that they've tried to make it a little less convenient for people to get to the PC meeting mm-hmm. to be able to cast a vote, and the party chair for the county, he's appointed so many of the people that are precinct committeemen,
right,
that what he's able to do is say, the outcome that we really want here is this. And he can persuade all of those people that he's appointed into positions to vote in that direction. Right.
Right.
So he can't actually appoint, but he can steer the votes in a way that gets the person into the position that he wants.
A lot of this has been an educational opportunity too, because many of the people that were appointed as PCs did not know that this was even an elected position. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once you're elected, you cannot be removed from that position.
Right.
So a lot of that was just an educational endeavor. What we encountered too, we found out a lot of these people that were being appointed did not even live in their particular areas. Without mentioning names, but there was a situation where someone was living on the east side of Evansville but got appointed to Scott Township, which meant Scott Township did not have any representation. That has changed now. We now have representation almost in the entire county. You can imagine with having 99 people, but we did lose 5 at the hearing because they did not meet the criteria of voting in 2 primaries. One gentleman was 18 years old, and rather than provide a waiver, the man was removed.
That was that was such an interesting exercise in power. And the thing of it is, it happened all over the state because as they started seeing the filings taking place, the state party started looking at those numbers and started alerting the county chairman to the fact that we've got a problem here. We're going to get all of these people signing up and they're going to take over. You're going to lose your seat.
Right.
And county chairmen are afraid, they're scared to death that they're going to lose their seat. And some of them rightfully so. But
the two primary vote that was on the new bill, I guess they passed So when we were recruiting, we had to stay by those standards. We had to pick somebody we had to ask somebody that had 2 primaries for the most part. And then, as you know, that law was challenged in Indianapolis. And so then that person won, but then it got overturned about 12 hours before the deadline. So we thought possibly one would make it based on the fact that law was overturned. But in any case, that same law that we had to go by, they also gave the county chairman's ability to break the law.
Right.
And so now they can put somebody in, like Ken said, not in the precinct that they live in. They can put a Democrat in a place of a good, solid Republican that was sent by the wayside at that hearing. And that's quite upsetting. So I hope with new leadership, we can get something like that changed.
There are a lot of changes that need to come down. And what for the general public as a whole, I think is probably a good opportunity too, to talk about the importance of primaries in the election process and what the real true purpose is, because it's gotten cloudy. Indiana has what's called an open primary system. And what that means is you declare which party's ballot you want to vote on each time that you go in to vote. So if you, in a primary, you could go in this year and vote Democrat, and next year you could vote Republican, and that's fine with everybody involved. Other states have you register with the party itself so that you're a member of that party. And those states actually have a little cleaner time in their primaries than what we do with an open primary. Because with open primaries, we get the situation then where people from the opposing party decide, well, you know what? I think we're going to all take Republican ballots this year. And they go and they gum the works up doing that and put weaker candidates on the Republican side because they come in and rock our vote that way. That's always been done kind of quietly and with a, nobody knows about it, wink nod kind of scenario. But this year, they're actually advertising to make that happen. And there's an organization that's running billboards that say point blank, Democrats, you can vote in the Republican primary. My gosh. What?
Not acceptable.
It is not acceptable. And it's totally insane that we're going to have people out there advertising to do that. And what that means is that they're going to make a concerted effort to either they're saying they want to promote moderate candidates, but really what they're looking for is to promote weaker candidates into the position, because In Indiana, the Democrats are really frustrated because whoever wins the Republican primary for governor is going to be the next governor of the state of Indiana, most likely. Same thing with our congressional race for the 8th district. Whoever wins the primary as a Republican is going to be that congressperson. So they're frustrated by that. And the only answer that they have is to try to mess up the other side.
This is nothing new, though.
Yeah.
No.
This has been going on for a long time.
Right. It's just been with the wink and nod in the
correct.
past. Yeah.
And now it's being exposed that people are being educated about what's truly going on behind the system. I perceive it as a uniparty.
Well, I do
That's
too.
what I see, and not representing the will of the people. And so it was really interesting going through this process and really finding the facts and the truth about what was transpiring.
Hence, this primary is probably one of the most important ones we've had in a long time. We have numerous people running for precinct committeemen, also for delegate. But in addition to that, we have 9, I think, running for Congress and 6 running for governor.
Mm-hmm.
And we are calling on the Republicans to get out and vote.
Got to.
I used to say same day voting, but I'm saying get out there now when you can and get the vote in, because they're trying to outnumber us only to weaken the Republican ballot in the fall. And they want to push their people through on the Democrat side in the fall. So we're not blind to this game either, so that's where I'm coming from. I mean, as far as the other things we talked about, one was running like the concerns of why we think it's wrong. And we haven't really touched on this subject, but if you are a state representative or you are a county already holding a county office, I feel, and I think Ken feels
I do. I second that. Yes.
that they have no business running for precinct committeeman and delegate. We've already put them in a job in the state or in the county. We, the people, the forgotten man and woman, want a part of the action. And I really believe that starting at the grassroots as a precinct committeeman is where it's happening, because this is the people that choose the chairman, and that chairman and his committee or her committee chooses the delegates the people that they want to get on the ballot to run. And if you don't start conservative here, it's lost, because they turn into rhinos real quick. And it's a uniparty, like he said.
Right. Because you can see in the past elections, too, that only a handful of people were making a decision about who was going to be on the ballot. And these candidates have failed because they did not allow the general public or the other PCs to participate.
And Evansville has a long history of only electing moderates, and in that moderation, they wind up electing people who lack vision.
Yes.
And people, I want to see candidates get out and say, this is where we're going.
I want to see new names on the ballot.
Well, absolutely.
I'm tired of seeing the same old names.
Exactly.
Generational. It's a generational thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, we're sitting here with red, white, blue on. I hardly see a Republican sign anymore that's not purple, blue. They're not.
Right.
They're not really the America First that we want.
Yeah. It's and if you just trace back the history of mayor for the city of Evansville as an example, and you just look at the people who have been in that seat, and you look at whether they've actually come forward with a vision for the city, no. And they've all been very moderate. And I've had conversations with mayors on different issues where they've looked me straight in the eye and they've told me, whatever the city council passes, I'll sign it.
Really?
Yes. Depending on the subject.
Sure.
But and then the candidates that were running last year for mayor, one of the questions I always asked them was about the power of the veto. How are you going to use that? And they said, well, we're all going to get along. That was pretty much the answer across the board.
I see.
Yeah.
What about the taxpayer? What about the constituent? What about
Who they're working for.
exactly?
Yeah.
They seem to have forgotten that.
They have. Yeah. This is an interesting area for the way the politics play out. But you're also seeing the Republican wing. What's happening to the Republican Party right now is that it's breaking into factions. They have not been able to hold any kind of unity in the party. That's why we lost every seat in the city last year. It's not that the city is that much more Democrat. It's that the Republicans had nobody, build a fire under them.
They were not inspired.
Right.
Right.
And so they weren't inspired to go out and vote. And they weren't thrilled with the choices that they were being faced with.
Right.
And so they've been so used to this mediocre government for generations, that they just have. There aren't any real big swings when it comes to government here. We kind of stay in that middle ground for the most part, but middle ground is not really where we want to be.
And we're not now.
Yes.
By running all these people, the public is going to have an opportunity to vote for an individual they're not familiar with. There's these different names, not the establishment, the ones that typically run in these positions. So people will get inspired to actually vote for these other individuals.
Mm-hmm. I think with those factions that have happened in the party, it breaks down to about 5 different groups that are all kind of vying for who's going to control the party. And at some point, there will be a leader that will emerge that's going to say, okay, let's figure out what we share in common and let's work on those things and let's bring the party back to actually bigger and better than it's ever been.
And
in
make
this area.
people feel included, just like he says, stop the country club type of organization.
Right.
And get the forgotten men and women. I keep saying that because these people are excited. I think we have awakened a lot of people.
Yep.
And they're excited about running and feel like they can do their part in their precinct, and they're really excited. So
I think we're actually truly the party of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we want to encourage even the young voter to get involved as well.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit about the convention, what happens there and the delegates going. Because, again, this is one of those, I had never really put that much, I've been to one convention in the past. Mm-hmm. I never really put that much weight on it in the past. And I sat down with Mikah Beckwith mm-hmm. and talked to him one day, and it just hit me that the importance of participating in that convention. It's a big deal. It's what are the policies of our party going to be moving forward, as well as who becomes our lieutenant governor and who becomes our attorney general.
Because we've had our blinders on, and we just thought that was not an elected position. Mm-hmm. And the governor has been appointing the lieutenant governor for years. Mm-hmm. So Mikah decides, I'm going to run, and that's where we're at. So that's really the way it's supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The people's choice.
Correct.
Right. And Mikah is drawing a lot of response, not just from the regular folks, but some of those candidates running for governor are also leaning with Mikah on a lot of this. I mean, he's really been a difference maker in the whole election process for this year. And I think Mikah probably dug the spurs in on this movement to get more people recruited for delegates and PCs. He's done a tremendous amount on that. And I think he was probably the catalyst to really make that take off the way that it has.
It is a national movement, though. It's not only mm-hmm. just the state of Indiana.
Right.
Other states have done some phenomenal things as well. But as far as Vanderburgh County, we are leading the pack. I'm not kidding. We have dialogue through other people in the state.
And I can envision Vanderburgh County continuing to lead that pack.
Totally.
I think as we see new leadership coming on board within the party, and we have some visionaries there, I think that, and I don't want to sound like this partisan hack when I'm doing that, because I've talked to plenty of candidates who say, we really don't, we try to work together. We try to, be bipartisan. So I don't want to sound like this hack with it by any stretch of the imagination. But in the way the system works with two parties, you have to have, there has to be some strength in that party. You have to have that common theme that people are able to grab onto. And we've lacked that for quite some time. So I'm excited because it's visionary. It's a huge move forward.
Well, truthfully, when I was a younger gal, I was living in Posey County, and I was vice chairman there, and I was precinct committeeman for a long time. And it wasn't that way then, and it's become that way. But I can sit here and say that Donald Trump opened up a lot of people's eyes when we had fake news. We have that's local too, and it's just opened up our eyes that we have been sitting here letting it happen and not realizing what a swamp has been festering. And so we are happy to be part of trying to make a change
and exposing, because as we're traveling this path, we're identifying things that are not morally, ethically right, and becoming more vocal about it as we uncover these things. That is not what the Republican Party is about. And the Democrats should do the same thing. They should clean house because they've gone too rogue. Okay. And so the same thing with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I am very disappointed that this election has 4 Democrats that took a place. They're sitting in the Republicans ballot and took really good people off that we had that wanted to really make a difference.
Yeah. The law that has been used for that has been in existence for, I think, 3 years or
22, like I think, right? In 2022?
22, yeah. And they immediately weaponized it.
Yes.
Because
it was orchestrated.
Yeah. I mean, because the idea is that you want to vet your candidates. You don't want to just kind of have the tent flaps wide open, right? You want to vet them and know that the candidate is truly representing your party values.
Right.
And so there needs to be a way to do that. And they put together this law, and they put too much of the final power in the hands of one person, and that's the county chairperson.
Right.
And so all across the state, all of the county chair people have this incredible power in their hands to make the decision about who's the winners and who are the losers. So that's not a good position to be in.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We look forward to changing that.
Absolutely. Well, there are going to be, I'm running for delegate myself. Both of you are too.
Yes,
right?
we are.
Yeah. So, and I'm in Knight Township. So we have 10 seats available, and I forget what my count was.
About 25.
Yeah, about 25 or so. So I'm like going, oh my gosh, there's a possibility I might not be going to the convention this year.
And I'm in Perry and Union. Last time it was Perry, Union, and German, and we chose 7. This time it's Perry and Union. It's only 5, and we have what, 21?
21. And
21.
Yes. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it really is. Yes. But it's still, I'll be crying my eyes out on election day.
You have to campaign this time.
I know. Yes. You have to work at it. I relied on going to the convention before.
Yes.
was because I got appointed by the county chairman, and I spent 8 years, I think, as a precinct committeeman for the next precinct over from the one that I live in.
So you were appointed.
I was appointed, yes,
Okay.
by Wayne Park.
At that time. All right.
Yeah, and nothing changed when leadership changed, and so I went to the person who has been the precinct committee person for that for where I live, and we talked, and he's not running again, so I put my name in, and here we go.
So now you're going to be elected this time.
Yes, I'm a shoo-in on the PC part of it,
right?
Because I'm unchallenged there. But I've got a campaign for this thing.
But we do have some that's challenged, and we really need people to get out and vote for them.
Yeah.
Right. I think the numbers, we've got 66 people that are uncontested, which I'm one of them for the PC. Johnny is,
All
and three of us. And then we're looking at about 33 people that are contested that are going to be on the ballot against the people that typically run each time.
Yeah, it's I just can't emphasize enough how important this particular election is, and the primary. Primary voting turns out usually to be well under 20% of the registered voters voting in the primary. We can't afford to do that this time around. We've got to get out the vote. It's just that simple. And the other part of it that I've become a really firm believer in is that you can't vote based on what you see in the media. Those commercials or the mailers that come in,
or billboards. Right.
You can't. Any time that you see somebody telling you why you should not vote for their opponent, something's wrong.
Right. They should tell about what they're going to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. What are you going to do for us? Not why should we not vote? And it's deceptive. I'm one of the rare ones who will look at their little notation because it'll be a headline. And there was a mailer that came out last week that had these claims that were just one line claim, and then it had a little footnote there about where the claim came from.
I got that same material. Yes.
The issue of the Courier and Press. So I went and I looked, and and I kind of went, logic tells me that maybe technically what they're saying is it's a bit of a whopper. It's but not completely over that line. But it was just it dealt with the wheel tax. Now the headline said that the candidate wanted to increase taxes on businesses. But what was really going on there was the wheel tax for Vanderburgh County. Every vehicle on the road was paying the same wheel tax. And our funds for roads were depleted at that time. So how are we going to overcome that? Well, the wheel tax allows you to have different variations of taxes depending on the size and weight of the vehicle. Heavy vehicles tear up the roads. It's that simple.
They should pay more.
They should pay.
Right.
Yeah. And they weren't. They were paying $25, same as a car. So does that sound like that's a person who's out for our best interest or our worst interests? And to me, it's that's the way that we fix things without having to bankrupt ourselves with bonds and all of that creative financing stuff. So don't fall for the stuff that you find on those mailers. Don't fall for the TV ads, and I know in the congressional race, there are people from out of state that are putting a ton of money to combat one particular conservative who's running, and it's not right. It's somewhere along the line. I don't know how we do it, but somewhere along the line, we've got to pull this. The reason I started doing interviews with candidates, this whole podcast came about because I thought, the newspaper's down to a skeleton staff. They'll do coverage of elections, but how in depth is it going to be? The TV stations have their 30 minutes a night. And they live off of 15-second sound bites. Okay? So where do people actually hear a conversation with a candidate? Exactly. Not an interview, not a gotcha, but a conversation that lets that candidate say, here's what I believe, and just allows you then to make up your own mind from there. So that's where all of this came from. And so And there have been a couple of times when I've gone, I'm going to quit doing those. I'm done with this. But it always still comes back to me that whole thing of we've got to do a better job of getting people informed so that they know who it is that's asking for their vote, as opposed to what they see in that 30
Don't you
second
think
clip.
the public's becoming more savvy, though, because they question, they're using more discernment because of just the narrative, what's happening in the news media.
Right.
So they're out there digging and asking questions and identifying. And I think that's why we have so many people now that's involved in this project right now.
And there are more citizen journalists that are coming up too. And they're going to be the people who are going to be reporting on things. The corporate structured journalism is on its way completely out.
Right.
And
they all have the same talking point, so you know it's fake because they all have the same talking point. So when people tell me, "Oh, I heard this," or "I saw this," or "I don't like it because of this," and I'll say, "What news station are you watching?" And bingo, it's because they're watching a hate station for most of our conservatives. Period.
but the problem is you can't get away from the bias. I make people mad with this, but Fox News is biased.
It is.
They're biased on the right side, but they're biased, and they choose their stories that fit their narrative, and they present them in a way that fits their narrative. And it's just that thing that when you watch, you have to be aware of that, because under the wording that they use is the trigger, and you just have to be more and more aware of that, because yes, CNN is biased, MSNBC is
I was
biased.
say it's 10 to 1. There, Fox might be 1, and they're 10 more the opposite.
Our local stations' journalistic standards have just kind of slid away, and we don't have the really credible journalists with just presenting the facts to you. That doesn't exist anymore. So
it's getting to where people don't really trust that their votes getting counted either, and we got to get that trust back.
Yep.
And again, it's by starting at the grassroots and show them that new leadership is going to change this.
And we have a great Secretary of State who is really pushing for that integrity in elections.
Which we got to vote for.
Diego Morales you were part of the.
We voted for Diego. I voted for Diego.
I did too.
Right.
Yeah, that part of the overturn. That was
it was exciting.
Yes, yeah, because that was the opening shot, basically. That was the message to the mainstream. Yeah. And pretty amazing. We could go on, talking about all this stuff forever.
I kind of look at it like David and Goliath. We're against the Goliath, but we know who won.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely. And that's our mentality, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for you too.
That's okay. I agree with you. If I didn't, I'd tell you. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. Really do. And I appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this recruiting effort and getting people involved in the process.
It wasn't just Ken and I. There was
Other
others.
people.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. It's a team of individuals.
Yeah. And there were several different groups at the same time that were doing this. Just phenomenal. And it was kind of one of those things where everybody got the same level of being fed up at the same time, and it just all
we want a
together.
Divorce. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah, exactly.
So change is coming. It's as simple as that. I really appreciate you guys very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for tuning in to This Week in Evansville. Remember to just keep clicking that like button. You can click it 100 times during a show. It's okay. You can just click it 5 or 10 times right now, just for the fun of it. Comment on the show. We always love seeing your comments here. And, of course, subscribe. You got to hit that button so you get updates on upcoming episodes of This Week in Evansville.